Well, European countries are calling on Israel to withdraw its troops from the buffer zone on its border with Syria. It comes after Israel's Prime Minister ordered his army to seize the Syrian-controlled zone in the Golan Heights. I spoke to Dr. Robert Geis-Pinfold, a lecturer in international peace and security at Durham University.
What we've seen is something quite extraordinary and I guess unexpected, in Israel basically throwing its weight into the conflict in Syria. So Israel abrogated unilaterally the agreement between itself and Syria, claiming that the regime with whom it made that agreement, the Assad regime, no longer exists, and therefore that agreement is dead and buried. And the result of that was that Israel then moved to take more territory within the Golan Heights. Remember that the Golan Heights itself, the Israeli side, is also occupied territory. It was taken from Syria in the Six-Day War of 1967, though Israel later annexed the territory. It's now expanded further. It's taken around 250 square kilometers of territory, which is specifically a demilitarized zone. The idea was that this would be a buffer between Israeli troops and Syrian troops on both sides of the Golan. Israel argues those Syrian troops aren't there anymore, so Israel needs to unilaterally take actions to prevent threats and to secure itself, which is why we're seeing that territorial control on the Golan and that expansion of its occupation there, but also that unprecedented number of Israeli airstrikes throughout Syria to try and neutralize the remnants of the Assad regime's weaponry and infrastructure. And we're hearing over 480 strikes in around 3 days now. You compare that to the last year, where there was around 200 Israeli strikes throughout Syria. So this is a significant escalation by Israel. They clearly think this is a security threat, and they clearly think that they need to act now to prevent this from becoming an even more serious issue in the future.
And why is the Golan Heights still such a contested area, and who lives there?
Well, on the Israeli side of the Golan Heights, you have around 50,000 people living there. That number is split evenly between Jewish Israelis who have moved there after 1967, whom the international community and international law would consider settlers, though they would, of course, dispute this, and 25,000 Syrians who stayed put after Israel occupied the territory. Now, what complicates things a little bit in terms of understanding the situation is that those Syrians are Druze. Now, the Druze are a religious group. They're an offshoot of Shia Islam, and Israel has, shall we say, complicated relations with the Druze. There are many Druze living in Israel, and unlike other Palestinian citizens of Israel, the Druze are overrepresented in Israel's army, police, and indeed politics. So they're very much integrated into Israeli society. The Syrian Druze are different, the ones in the Golan, because they still consider themselves Syrian, but at the same time, Israelis across the political spectrum don't fear them in the same way they might fear Palestinians or see Palestinians as a security threat. So those Druze in the Golan have had to walk a very, very fine tightrope for a long time between basically accepting the reality that they're under Israeli control and that's not going to end anytime soon, but also professing loyalty to Syria and to the Assad regime. And I think that tightrope is now going to be stretched even further with the collapse of that government in Syria.
Dr. Robert Geis-Pinfold there.